Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. In this video we're going to be talking about Henry and the defense that he used to take home $50,000 in the MCS kickoff challenge. So generally I like talking a little bit about real football, real X's and O's, and how you can apply that to your Madden game. And this one we're going to be talking more about the competitive side of things and basically how Henry is such a dominant defensive player. So my last couple of videos about Henry, or I guess the only video I've done, it was about that nickel double A gap defense. So basically the defense, it looked very similar to this after the setup was done, where you would basically spread your D-line, you would spread your linebackers, and then you would walk your user down over top of the center. So this defense is very similar, but I think the reason why people originally gravitated towards that nickel wide is because these guys here, these defensive ends, when you spread them, you can't double team. And we know the most popular way to pick up that Texas stunt was to double team this guy and then Mike ID this guy. But when we spread these linebackers, or excuse me, spread this D line, we're not able to double team. So the Texas stunt is when this guy goes second and this guy basically picks that tackle and allows this guy to loop in behind him. But what Henry is doing here is he didn't even really run much of that Texas stunt. What he's doing here is he's going to do what we call the engage blitz, where basically he takes his user, he walks down over top of the center, and then all he's doing, he's spreading his D line, he's pinching his linebackers, and then this guy is blitzing, and we also have all these guys rushing. So what does that mean for the offense? So as we can see, we only have two blockers to this side. So it's basically 1, 2, 3 to pick up two people. So we're going to watch how this ends up being played out. But Henry's going to come down. He's going to lock his user in. He's going to touch that center. And then because John is in base protection, it ends up leaving that in free off the edge. And then John basically just wants to get rid of the ball. He switched sticks, or Henry switched sticks, and he was about to throw a big six. So big first pass from John, and Henry was basically just doing what he does and keeping his opponent off guard. And now jumping over to the game, I think for the majority of the time when it came to running that engage blitz, I think Henry, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure this is what he was doing. He was putting his shell on cover 2, and then he was running this play right here called Overstorm Brave. So like I said, wide, and I'm going to flash up on the screen at some point during this video what playbooks nickel wide is in. But essentially, you go ahead, you pick Overstorm Brave, and then for offense, I'm still going to run a bunch of X Nasty, and I'm just going to pick a 5-out play. And the first one I'm going to show you guys is, so for one, spread your D-line, so D-pad left, spread, and then D-pad right bumper, and then we walk our guys down like this, and then you can basically set up whatever coverage shell you want. I'm not saying this is the shell he was running, but he was running a lot of man, and basically you just walk down over the center, and this is how it looks pre-snap. And I'm just going to jump over to the offensive side of things. This is with empty protection. So I put my right stick up, and as you can see, those kind of dotted lines, that means they're in empty protection. What John was in his last play, he was in base protection. So if I flip my left stick down, or I'm holding LB and then I flip my left stick down, this switches it to base protection, as we see here. And as you see, it ends up making the right of screen defensive end up coming free. But basically, that's the game you play. You're either going to make your right guy come in free or your left guy come in free. So base, as we can see, is going to make this left guy come in, or excuse me, this right guy come in free, but I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to walk down, and then as we can see, both of those guys ended up coming free. So boom, I'm going to do it one more time, and this time, I'm not even 100% sure if I went to base, but we're going to go base protection, and then he might have, I'm pretty sure John was probably doing this, but when I do something like this, as you can see, that middle guy still comes in free. So I guess it doesn't really matter. Sometimes the guy on the end is going to come in free. Other times it's going to be the guy off the edge. But nonetheless, this is great pressure. So one more time. Boom. Snap the ball. And we get our inside linebacker coming in free that time. So the next play is going to be a very similar look from Henry. And as you can see here, I just paused it. We see he puts that flame logo over top of Henry's user. So he's untargeting this guy. But because Henry's lined up right over top of the center, he's still running down. So the line, even though he ended up untargeting that guy, he runs down. He does his sin 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess you can kind of call it like 5.5 because he is touching the center. So he's going to touch his center and he's going to drop back and try to lurk across the middle. But as we can see, this time we get that A-gap that I was getting in practice mode just now. And once again, forces John. There's basically nothing there. And almost a throw out a sack once again. So for that last one, I'm not going to jump over to practice mode. We're just going to jump to this next play here. But this is just another look. As we can see, this time he's making Henry block 6. And I think that's really important. Something about playing Henry is you're going to have to block 6. He's going to find a way to make you uncomfortable, send pressure at you, and make you do what you don't want to do. Leading up to all of these games, John was basically just rolling out because what we talked about earlier is those Texas stunts. So what the Texas stunt does, you have no contained player. So you're basically able to just freely roll out. What this defense does, because your defensive ends are lined up so wide and he's actually sending them off the edge, John has no choice but to basically sit here in the pocket. So what we're going to get here is he's going to run the Tom stunt. So I'm going to jump over and show you guys how to do that. But pre-snap, this is the exact same look. John had been feeling really, really uncomfortable with this send 5. So remember, before we were sending these guys, all these guys were coming. This time, what Henry's going to do is he's going to mix in a Tom stunt. So it depends on whether or not you call right or left Tom. But essentially what Tom does is a two-man game between these two defensive tackles. So one of these guys is going to pick this way and then loop around. Or you can do vice versa, where this guy picks this way and then you loop around. But what makes nickel wide so good is this is pretty much the only formation where the Tom stunt is this effective. And it has a lot to do with these guys being so far apart. Any other formation, these guys are lined up more as like 3 techniques or even 2 techniques. But when you spread out, as you can see, our defensive tackles are lined up all the way on the offensive tackle. So that's just super wide, and it just makes it really hard for the offensive line to target. So just watch those 2 defensive tackles here. So this time we get, the goal was for this guy to pick, and then we get this guy looping around. And then it also got John to block 6. So for the first time, he ended up blocking 6, and Henry only sent 4. So that's kind of the cat and mouse game part of it. And as you can see, there is absolutely nothing here underneath. But if John lobs this pass here to this area, this is definitely a touchdown. But that's kind of, when you're playing Henry, when you're playing a good defensive player, you're not thinking straight. It's a 4th and 6. You're like, if I don't pick this up, I'm done for here. But as you can see here, even this corner route here ended up being open. But he ends up throwing a bullet pass leading it inside, and then Henry's able to pick that one off. It probably evens out, honestly, because we saw he got that throw out of sack on that first play, and then he also got that throw out of sack that should have been a interception on that next play. And now jumping over to the actual game itself, remember I put my shell to cover 2, and I'm not sure what play specifically Henry was basing off of, like I said before. But when it comes to the Tom stunts, as you can see here, the left Tom stunt means the guy on the left is the one picking. So he's the one kind of running down. And so this previous play was basically that left Tom stunt. So the tackle on the left is running down and trying to pick so the tackle on the right can loop around. On Madden here, they have that guy identified as the nose. But as we saw, they're both lined up in the same technique on both sides. So once again, I'm just going to pick that left Tom. And I don't really have super fast guys in. This is just regs. This is not MUT. But as we can see, John was doing a lot of base protection. And what base protection is bad at is picking up stunts. So if I switch to base and then I take my user, I walk this guy down. And once again, this time I'm locking in. He basically ran straight backwards. And when I snap this ball here, as we see, like I said, this defensive tackle is super slow. But as we see, when I jump over to the offensive replay, or excuse me, the instant replay, this is a very advantageous position. Like, if this guy's fast, if this guy's agile, he's coming in free. But this time they pass it off, but as you can see, it still generates pressure. It puts your opponent on a timer, and then we're able to get that sack here. So you can kind of play around with it between the left Tom stunt and the right Tom stunt. So D-pad left, RB, and then left Tom is X, and then we go to the right. One time, right Tom is RB, as we see at the bottom there. So in this one, Henry, he mixes it up a little bit more, and this one is kind of going to be hard to notice if you're not paying attention. But as I've talked about, as you probably played online, a lot of people are running that Texas stunt. So the first 2 letters of Texas are T and E, and what does that mean? That's also the order that the stunt occurs in. So T-E, that means tackle, and then this is our N. So it means Texas, so tackle first, in second. This is an example of an ET stunt. So E first, tackle second. I'm going to show you what that is in the game. But basically, that is this guy trying to pick this tackle so that our defensive tackle can loop around. And Henry also does this to the offensive left because Michael Vick is left-handed. So he's going to get more accurate throwing animations to that left side. So he's going to do basically the exact same setup, except he's gonna walk his guy down, and once again he calls that ET stunt instead of that TE stunt. And then we're still gonna send this guy. So he still ends up sending the same amount of people off this left side, but I think he's kind of trying to bait John to roll out this way and give this guy easy sack. So we're just gonna watch this play here as he is able to engage with that center. And this time we see this guy gets picked up, this guy gets picked up, but it's this guy who ends up coming free. So John, he's able to complete that, pick up a lot of yards on that quick throw to the flat. But that's just a great rep by Henry. And it kind of shows you the game theory of Madden. So he's not just spamming the same blitz. A lot of people think like these pro players, they just spam the same blitz every time. But there's actually a lot of thinking that's going on involved, as we can see. And now jumping back over to the game, simply holding the play call icon. And as we can see, text, that's our TE stunt. But exit, that is our ET stunt. So the E comes before the T. So in first, tackle second. So that's what this left exit means. So once again, I'm choosing Overstorm Brave. And then I'm doing left exit. And then John, he chose a play with empty protection where we basically just had somebody fast to the flat. So for the sake of this, once again, I'm just going to pick something like motion spot, halfback under. And then I'm going to put our running back on, or excuse me, our tight end on the route. But spread D line, pinch linebackers, walk this guy down, and just watch that defensive end on the left. So this time, we still end up getting that guy to come in free off the edge. But that was kind of the game theory of it, is one of these guys is coming in free. It's still 3 off the edge. It's just a different order. And in the previous reps, we've talked about his send 5. We talked about his send 4. This is basically going to be a send 4.5. So it's going to be that exact same look. Pre-snap, once again, that's a common theme that you guys should be picking up on, is you want to make everything look the same pre-snap so you don't know, or so that your opponent doesn't know what you're running. But this time, I want you guys to watch how he drops this defensive end out into a zone to kind of cover anything fast to the flat. But it's basically just going to be boom, engage, pressure, pressure, pressure. And then we're going to get somebody, we're going to get an insta-shed essentially. But he got his goal. He got John to block 6. So Saquon Barkley stayed into block. And really just nothing there. So once again, just make sure you guys are mixing up different coverage calls. So throwing that defensive tackle, or excuse me, that defensive end into coverage, it didn't end up doing anything here because John basically ran a smash return, or excuse me, a return type of concept where we got some crossers and a return route. But this is a player that you can obviously switch stick onto, maybe take away this return route and things like that. So great rep by Henry. And then this next one was just a base send forward, so he didn't do any pressures. I'm not even sure if he QB contained here, but because of that, John has basically just been sitting in the pocket. All John has wanted to do leading up to this was just roll out, roll out, roll out. But now he's just sitting in the pocket. He's making him sit in the pocket. He's making him make a read from the pocket, which is a lot more difficult. So he's gonna walk down again, and he's not gonna send any. He's not even gonna engage. He's gonna drop and kind of just play that whole user in the middle of the field. And as we can see, John might have been throwing a pick on this play here, but he ends up getting that throw out of sack, and it just falls harmlessly incomplete. And this time, Henry's going to do his send 4.5 once again, and we have this bunch lined up to this side, and he's going to put him in probably like a 10 to 15 yard curl flat. I can't exactly tell, but he's doing his exact same setup where he's walked down. He's going to engage. He's going to hope this guy comes in free. But watch as John actually does end up blocking 6. He picks up the pressure, but because we dropped our defensive end out into coverage, this corner route that John was banking on covering is no longer open. So now John, he has no choice but to scramble. That ends up being a really bad read. He probably should have just took this one out of the pocket because, as we know, Michael Vick can run, and there's a lot of green grass here, but that's besides the point. He's making John is very off guard by the way Henry's playing. He's not used to being kept in the pocket. He's not in that mindset of like, oh, I'm going to scramble, because Henry hasn't been allowing him to scramble this entire game. So you guys probably don't need this, but basically over top of that bunch side, he would mix in throwing that, basically running something like this. And I also felt like he was shading inside because his guys were getting beat to the outside, but because he had that curl flat there, and in Mutt, this is going to be a linebacker who actually has coverage skills, and he's just fast and agile. But as we can see, when we run this, oops, I'm an idiot. I forgot to take the tight end and play off. We're still able to get pressure, even though we're only sending 4.5 really there. And then here, John has been so used to not being able to roll out of pocket. He thinks back. He's like, oh, I was able to roll out on that last one. But once again, we're just going to get that send 5. We're basically QB containing on this outside. We're going to have this guy coming in, and then our running back's going to be responsible for blocking him. But as we're going to see, John wants to roll out, but this end is so wide, he doesn't really have a choice. And now this play is basically dead. He has an entire route combo set up to this right side of the field. He tries to roll left. This is basically his only hope, but it's 2nd and 18. And he tries to throw this halfback angle route, this Texas route, but there's just nothing there. So there's a very, very kind of lucky throw, lucky catch. And then on this next one, John is going to end up trying to just block 5 again. So we're going to get this motion across, this auto motion across. And 2 guys are going to come free off this edge. So this guy's going to come free, and then this guy's going to come free. And John is very lucky that this is not an intentional grounding. But this is, once again, just that same look. He found something his opponent doesn't like, and he has no choice but to like throw this ball away. I'm thinking we can't really see pre-snap, but it looks like he just ran a regular base protection. And what I told you guys about base protection is this is basically man. So these guys are all going to block basically whoever is closest to them. So it's man here, and then it's going to be, or excuse me, I guess it's man here, man here, man here, man here. This guy ends up looping around, and then our tackle ends up blocking this guy. But as we're going to see, sorry about that, but as we're going to see is our guys are going to both come free off the edge. So he was trying to basically untarget those guys in the middle, or I guess that's inadvertently what the base protection did, and there was just nothing there. He was feeling pressure. So in this next one, I'm not going to jump over to the practice mode once again, but I want you guys to just watch how clean this Tom Stunt is. So we're going to get a pick here, and then this guy's just going to come free. And John, and once again, we have the contains here, so John can't roll out of the pocket. It's pressure coming from those A and B gaps. And this is just a really clean rep. This is what I was trying to show you guys in practice mode, but the personnel really, really matters. As you see, Vic has no shot, has no choice but to really throw that one away. And then this one is kind of the dagger. We're going to get the base pressure that we've been seeing this whole game. And Henry's going to come down, engage, and he's going to drop to this hole. We know stem down corners are really common. Henry knows that. So he gets that pressure across the middle. He says he got to get the ball out quick, so now I'm going to throw this. And then Henry was talking crazy to him after this pick. And this is basically a dagger. Like, this is only the second quarter, but this is basically when that game was over. And here's another rep of that Tom Stunt. So boom, boom. And this guy, this time it's going to be this guy coming in free. So John, he really wasn't setting his position. He was just rolling with his base protection, which is possibly the worst protection you can run against anything that is mugged up. So the base protection is really good against stuff like loop blitzes because basically the guys are going to block who are in front of them. But when it comes to stunting, these guys very easily just get confused. And that's exactly what we're going to get here. So this tackle ends up looking all the way at Henry's user instead of the guy who's lined up off that edge. So we end up getting the edge guy free. And boom, switch stick, pick 6. This game is entirely over. So that's going to be it for this one. I really appreciate you guys if you watch this far in the video. Make sure you drop any other players that you want me to watch or any other concepts. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.